Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Blue Raider Podcast, hosted by Jake Bolden and presented by the Conseco Group General Contracting and Mighty Dog Roofing. Don't miss another Tuesday episode by subscribing to the podcast on all streaming platforms or catch our visual presentation uploaded every week on YouTube. Don't miss our next ticket giveaways by subscribing and following on all Blue Raider Podcast social media accounts on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Blue Raider Pod. Welcome back into the Blue Raider Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Bolden. In today's episode, we've got a lot of topics to cover. Today, we've got the Lady Raiders. Their first exhibition was Friday night, and joining us to talk about that, as well as the Lady Raiders basketball team, is new voice of the Lady Raiders, Joe Fisher. Then after that, we've got our player interview of the week with Andi Spies, who just actually earned Conference USA Setter of the Week honors, along with a plethora of Freshman of the Week honors this season. So we'll talk a little bit about her first year here in Murfreesboro, and then as always, throughout football season, we will go behind enemy lines and preview our matchup this Saturday when the Blue Raiders travel to El Paso to face the Miners. We have Adrian Broaddus, our guest from 600 ESPN El Paso and MinerTalk podcast, to preview that matchup with the Miners. So stick around for all of that. And of course, we have the Raider wrap up at the end of the episode. But before we get into that first interview with voice of the Lady Raiders, Joe Fisher, I would like to take a second to thank our sponsors for today's episode, beginning with Mighty Dog Roofing. When it comes to your home, trust Mighty Dog Roofing Nashville East for all your needs. As a veteran and locally owned business, we're honored to be one of just 11 Owens Corning contractors nationwide to win their prestigious service award. From roofing and gutters to windows and siding, our expert team delivers top quality craftsmanship and unmatched service. We're here to protect your home with pride and precision. Make sure you choose Mighty Dog Roofing Nashville East, where excellence is a tradition, and call us today at 615-MD-ROOFS, that's ROOFS, or visit their website at mightydogroofing.com to schedule that free quote today. And also, thanks to the Conseco Group. Since 1987, the Conseco Group has been turning dreams into reality, whether it's pre-construction consulting, construction management, design build, or renovations and improvements. We're here to exceed your expectations. At Conseco Group, we don't just deliver, we deliver with passion, precision, and unparalleled quality. Our hands-on approach ensures your investment is maximized and your vision is brought to life. From Clarksville to Columbia and beyond, trust Conseco Group to handle every detail with expertise and care. If you're ready to build your future, contact the Conseco Group today at 615-298-9907 or visit their website at consecogroup.com. Again, thanks to our sponsors, the Conseco Group General Contracting and Mighty Dog Roofing. Now, it's time to get into the discussion today. And of course, as I have already prefaced, joining us is going to be the new voice of the Lady Raiders, taking over longtime tenured Dick Palmer. It is Joe Fisher. Joe, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, it's great to be with you, Jake. Thank you.
Joe, there's so much to talk about. I want to know a little bit about you, and I want to know a little bit about the Lady Raiders, but I think the topic at hand, really, I want to get to know you first. So you've been around a long time in the Nashville, Middle Tennessee market. Obviously, you spent years at Vanderbilt. You recently come from Tennessee Tech. Now you're at MTSU. Just to talk a little bit of shop with you, if I can. Sure. How did you get here? What was the discussions like to get you to take over the voice of the Lady Raiders this season?
Well, it started, I have a full-time job, Jake. I work at a golf course. I work at Old Natchez Country Club, which I enjoy very much. And when this first was floated to me, the first thing I had to do was go to them, and say, this has come up. This would require me to travel. This would require, me to be gone some. And if we can't make this work, then I would totally understand that, because, my first commitment is to that full-time position. And they were not only supportive, they were very encouraging and said, no, we'll make this work. You need to do this. And that was a great feeling for me. So that kind of got it started. And then the next thing I wanted to do was I wanted to talk to Dick Palmer. And I've known Dick a long time. He's a good friend and a mentor, a colleague. I've worked for him and with him through state tournament games and state championship games over the recent years in high school. And I wanted to talk to him, and I just wanted to make sure that he was comfortable with all of this, that this was what he wanted. And he was very open and welcoming, and said, no, I want you to do this. I want you to be the guy. And so that helped a lot. And then after that, it was just kind of sitting down and putting the nuts and bolts of it together, and trying to make sure we can make this work, because you've seen this schedule, Jake. There's some travel. I mean, we're going all over the place. They're playing great teams all over the country. So I just had to be comfortable, and everybody had to be comfortable with me doing that. But to have the opportunity to be back and be a voice of a university and of a program, and certainly one that's this close to my heart and has been for a long time, certainly means a lot to me.
Yeah, what's interesting too is the prestige of the Lady Raiders basketball program. Obviously, like you talked about, like it's kind of a one of the premier programs that we have here. So there's a lot that comes with that. As you've studied up for this job and those kind of things, as far as what you've learned about the program, and I'm sure you being around it in the Middle Tennessee area for so long, you may have already be pretty familiar with the program itself. But when you talk about this program, what are some things that you know about this team that excite you? What are things about this program that have you geared up for this season?
Well, I could tell you right off the bat, Jake, one of the first things is I wouldn't have taken the job if this was not a championship level team. I wasn't going to sign up and do games, for a program that was not competitive, and that certainly is not the case here. I've known Rick Insell, and I go back to covering him in his days when he was at Shelbyville. When I was in TV, so we go way back. So I have a great connection with them and great feeling for how they like to do things, and so that was very important to me to be a part of a program that is on the cutting edge, that is on the way up, that has a chance to do some really great things, and so that makes it a whole lot easier to sign up to go through the January, February, March run, that you're going to go through when you got a team that's really talented and has a chance to make a statement. So that was big. But I know a little bit about the program. I know a little bit about the history. It was fun for me to sit in on the first exhibition game and just watch because I knew some of those players, but to get to see them firsthand for the first time, except for the one open practice that I was able to attend, uh, that was very good. I'm really looking forward to it. This team has a chance to do a lot of really good things.
It's a great segue into the first topic in two Fridays exhibition matchup. And I know that playing UT Southern, there's only so much you can gather from an exhibition where you're clearly the superior opponent. But from what I saw on Friday, I thought the team had a lot of great chemistry. The thing that a lot of Insel gets a lot of scrutiny for, whether fair or not, is a level of depth that he plays on the bench. And we saw a lot of that in exhibition on Friday. I thought there was a lot of pieces that really impressed me. But Joe, I want to turn it over to you a little bit. From what you saw on Friday night, anything really stand out to you about this team?
Well, it was interesting to watch early on because I thought I saw actually a little bit of jitters early on. There were a couple of players that maybe were not as solid as you'd like them to be, but they settled in, and that's what these games are for. I don't care how long you've played, how much you've played. When you get into a new season and you start all over again, you're probably going to have a little bit of that, and so they played through that and they managed it and moved on. I thought Blakely was outstanding. When you think in an exhibition game to play 29 minutes, which is a lot in that kind of game. But I think Coach Insel wanted her out there to run the floor with different combinations, and he wanted her to sort of run the show and have them all benefit from that. 8 assists, 20 points, one turnover. That's pretty impressive. And to see the bigs run the floor the way they did, I think that was another thing that came through to me. I think they have learned if you put in the effort and you run the floor in this offense, you will be rewarded. You're going to get the assist, you're going to get the look. It may be the trailing three, whatever. But if you'll run the floor, you'll get the chance. And that came across to me pretty quick that this team gets that. So in the grand scheme of things, to see the way the game played out, and as you said, there were moments, but clearly a superior opponent. It didn't get overly sloppy. Those games can get out of hand, and you start making terrible decisions and doing that. Didn't happen. I was very impressed by that. This is a team that I think has a pretty good idea of what Rick and Matt, this group, want to do, and I was impressed with the way they did in game one.
To draw back on Blakely, I know I've been holding Rick's feet to this fire this whole time ever since he's made the comment that Courtney Blakely is one of the fastest guards. You've been around college basketball for a time. Would you agree that she is potentially, if not the fastest guard in all of college basketball?
She's very quick. I don't know if she's the fastest, but that gets into. I mean, you can be the fastest running down the floor and have no control of the basketball. She has great control of the basketball. She has great control of the timing of the offense. So she's as fast as she needs to be. I think that's the more appropriate. You don't have to be, lights out, hair on fire all the time. You just have to be in control and lead your offense. She did a wonderful job of that. I think Davis comes in and does some things as well, is going to get some quality time, at those positions. But yeah, I think Blakely is a special player. And I think it said a lot again in an exhibition game where you win by 40 that she played 29 minutes. I think Coach Insel wanted her to play with a variety of the players and get them used to being led by her.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Courtney, one thing about her, like you said, is that controlled level of speed that she carried. She had 7 assists in the first half, finished with 8. And again, to even add to that is just the one turnover over 29 minutes. And another thing, again, is what is this team without Savannah Wheeler and her scoring production? Well, if I know Friday, again, if it's any indication, but scoring 20 points from your point guard, I don't think that's the expectation for Courtney on a nightly basis, but 20 points is pretty promising. And then to even add to boot Alina Arike, the new addition from Texas Tech and UTEP years ago, she puts in 19 and only 19 minutes as well. So you might think to yourself, they lose the scoring production of Savannah Wheeler, they lose the rebounding physicality of Courtney Whitson. But clearly, if Friday was any indication of the balanced approach that Courtney Blakely brings to the table, her ability to facilitate the ball, that maybe that scoring is offset because of a more balanced approach this season because of her ability to have the vision and find those open players. So, and then again, I want to add to Tamia Scott, who always seems to get thrown to the back of the line here, but 24 points, 3 of 6 from 3. She's just such a deadly player. She's so lethal all over the floor, not only down low, but up top. She gets around the high ball screen so quickly. It's incredible what she's able to do, not only with the basketball, but off the basketball to get herself open. So overall, I think what we saw on Friday is what we were expecting to see. Maybe the defense wasn't there, but I don't think the ladies fell off of any of their scouting reports. I mean, who would have thought that the bigs were going to shoot 23 pointers and they were going to make so many of them? At some point you thought they would regress to the mean, but that just never came. So I don't want any fans to be alarmed. I mean, when you win a game by nearly 50 points, that should be admired. But Joe, as we wrap the talk up here on the Lady Raiders, what are they came off a year where they win 18 Conference USA games straight. I think the streak is up to 27 total. I mean, the standard has been set for what you expect out of this team. Now, Liberty, we know, is good. They're going to be a threat. But I feel pretty strongly about these pieces that have returned, that this team could very possibly do that again. I want to know from you, do you think that's reasonable expectation for this program this year?
Well, I'm sure reasonable expectation is to win the conference. I don't doubt that. I do like the fact that they put together a schedule that is formidable. I mean, in non-conference, this is what great teams do, in my opinion. When you feel confident in your ability that you're going to make postseason and that you're going to make a run, then you're very comfortable playing top teams. You're very comfortable early on matching up, and that's what this is doing. I mean, to see them play at Tennessee and Iowa State, to put that one in the mix. A top 10 team right off the bat. I think that says a lot. And I think Rick should be commended for that. Instead of playing a cupcake schedule where you run through and you win 16 games and then you get to conference, I really like the fact they're willing to challenge themselves early on and find out what they're all about. I think that says a lot. But I don't think there's any doubt the expectation level is very high. That's where they want it. It's where it should be. And given this team, it's earned.
Any non-conference games? I know you said you get to travel to a lot of them. Any non-conference games that stand out to you that you look forward to seeing?
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to going to Thompson Bowling, and seeing Tennessee there. That'll be a lot of fun to go back up there. And again, when you go down that list, that trip, that Thanksgiving trip to play 3 games in a week, to go to Tallahassee and play first, and then jump down to Fort Myers and play Purdue and then Iowa State. Those are really telling trips. You learn a lot about a team because that's very much like tournament time. That's very much like going to an NCAA tournament. And a lot of them treat it that way because you got the game, then you got a break for one day, and then you got the next game. And so that's the way a lot of coaches do this on purpose, to say, okay, we're getting ready for March, so we're going to do it now. And this is how it works. And you're going to play a quality team. And I think it's great for them. to see that. But to go coast to coast. I mean, to Princeton, Kansas State, another great opponent. Up in St. Joseph's, Missouri, in the Snyder Classic. This team is going to learn a lot about themselves before they get to January 1, and I think that's exactly what Coach Insel wants.
Absolutely, and a lot of games they got to win to get that that top 16 placing that I know is coveted. I know that's maybe not something that he presents out loud publicly, but I know he wants to host, and I know that getting wins in those pivotal matchups early on in the year is going to be key in doing so this coming March. So that is Joe Fisher. He is the voice of the Lady Raiders. Joe, I appreciate you taking time out of your day, talking a little Lady Raiders basketball, and we look forward to listening to you on the airwaves this year.
I appreciate it. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Did you know the Blue Raider podcast has an online store? You can now support your favorite podcast by checking out our selection at our website, blueraiderpodcast.com. And stay tuned for new merchandise releases as we collaborate with athletes in NIL partnerships.
Joining the Blue Raider podcast with us now is freshman setter coming to us from Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin, having a blazing freshman year. It is Andi Spies. Andi, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, and I'm very excited to be talking with you today. As I was able to kind of talk with you before we started recording, the freshman year for you has been outstanding, one of the best in Lady Raider volleyball history. You had a triple-double earlier in the year against SEMO. I'm not sure the number of game that was in your career here, but triple-doubles don't come every night, as I'm sure everyone can imagine. I want to walk through that night a little bit. You got 11 kills, 38 assists, 11 digs. In the game itself, did you know that you were even close to a triple-double?
No, actually, I didn't, but we switched to a 6-2, so I was hitting and setting. So, I mean, I knew it was a possibility, but I wasn't quite sure. But yeah.
To talk about the rarity of it, so when people hear triple-double, they normally apply it to basketball, but when talking about volleyball, it's kind of an all-around honor as well, because the kills are the hitting, you've got the assists as a setting, and then the digs as a defensive specialist, as some people say on the back line, that kind of thing. So you're on the court a lot to be able to earn the ability to get that. Talk about like your high school career. I mean, have you ever had other triple-doubles before? If so, how frequently did you have them in high school?
I wasn't really aware of how many triple doubles I had in high school, but I was almost always double-digit kills and assists. I guess it just depends on the digs. But I hit and set in high school, played all the way around. And my team didn't have a lot of players that played in club. So I really had to step up like all 4 years and just like take charge. So they really relied on me a lot, gave me a lot of balls. So I'm not like new to hitting or anything. So when Coach Crawford had me hit and set, I was like, okay, easy. I've done this before.
So we're talking about the triple-double, but your season as a whole has been terrific. You're over 700 assists now as the day of the recording. What can you attribute this first year's success?
I mean, I came here in the spring last semester, and I started training with the team already. I wasn't the greatest back then. Like, I had a lot of technical work that needed to get done, and I finally put all the pieces together this preseason, and it's just really helped with the team and just like the success.
And when you talk about getting better at it, I'm sure there's a lot of technical things you could talk about, but one thing about being a setter is the chemistry that you have with your hitters. That's something that you just have to build over time. And again, that's what makes this season for you so special, is it's your first season here in Murfreesboro as a freshman. What are you doing to build the relationship with these girls, not only in practice, but off the court as well? How are you bonding with your new teammates?
I mean, we have to get extra reps all the time because, like, it's really important to build that connection because you don't have all the time in practice to do it. So we're getting extra reps, like, in our free time. Like, we hang out, do stuff as a team. Like, I've asked hitters, like, oh, do you like this kind of set? Like, how do you like me to respond to you? Like, if you make a mistake, how do you want me to, like, hype you up kind of? So, like, off the court, it's really important to just hang with your teammates, get to know them.
How are you adjusting to Murfreesboro as a freshman?
I think I'm doing pretty well. I like it here a lot. I like being on my own and just like learning how to like not only do like school and volleyball, but like balance just everything all together.
One of the interesting facts too about this incoming freshman class, so there's 5 of you, 3 of you are from Wisconsin. Yourself is from Fort Atkinson, Emma Nilsson's from Green Bay, Reagan McIntosh is from Verona, which is, my understanding, is just west of Fort Atkinson. And then another fun fact is sophomore Allison Eccles, she's from Kenosha. So there's 4 of you on the team that are from Wisconsin, 3 of you are freshmen. Is there any run-in between the 4 of you as you were growing up in Wisconsin? Did you guys play club or play against each other in club? What was anything crossover there?
Funny story. Me and Reagan played club like all growing up. We were on different teams, but like we played at the same club. My mom even coached her when she was 12. So that's kind of funny. So we've known each other for a long time. Me and Emma played high performance together. Like Green Bay is about like 2 hours for me, so we didn't really see each other much. And I played an age group up in club, so I didn't play with people my age. But we played together one time, so we already had a connection coming in. And Allie Eckel, I honestly didn't know her until I came to camp here. But like it's really cool that now like when I go home we can like hang out and just do stuff together and like
Yeah, I'm curious too. Like when you go back, I guess you got you haven't gone back yet, I guess, as a freshman, maybe this summer. But have you run into your teammates? I mean, is that something that like you guys plan to stick together when the season's over, you go back home in the off season? Is that kind of plans you guys have worked out, flying back home?
Yeah, usually like me, Reagan, and Allison, we all fly back together. Emma, since Green Bay is so far from all of us, I don't know if she's gonna fly with us, but I think when we go home we'll hang out because we're pretty close to each other.
It's so cool to have. Again, you've got 4 players all from within the same state, that, if you will, but they're all relatively close. So when you talk about some of those players and creating chemistry with them, especially, but not only them, but the freshman team, because you got a lot of freshmen on this team, a lot of growing up for a lot of you. The team kind of had a rough start, but right now you've won 5 of your last 6. Things are starting to heat up. You're getting closer to that conference tournament. What kind of, if you had to assess where the team is at right now moving into the conference tournament, how are you feeling about your teammates?
I feel really good. I feel like preseason was kind of like we were figuring each other out, how to play together, what each other need on the court. And now we've like figured that out. We're starting to get in our like groove, our rhythm. And it's just becoming a lot like cohesive rather than like playing like individuals. It's becoming a lot better.
You've experienced the Western Kentucky experience recently, going up to Bowling Green. You're going to UTEP this week in El Paso, another team that's had a great season so far. I want to ask you, this is your first year in college. When you're measuring your team up against some of the giants of Conference USA, how are you necessarily, when you assess your own team, what are some areas that you think you guys need to improve in or get better at as you get closer to the Conference USA tournament? Because ultimately these are teams you have to beat to win that championship. So when you're assessing what you guys need to do, and because you've won sets against Western Kentucky, so what needs to happen for this team to continue that success and maybe even vie for a championship this year?
I really think we just need to have like consistency throughout the match. Like preseason, everything, we had a lot of ups and downs, like times we're playing really good, like we're connecting, and then like we'll go into the next set and then everything will just like go downhill. But I think if we just hold consistency, and it doesn't always have to be at the highest level all the time, like if it dips like a little bit and we can just get back from that, I feel like that'll help us beat those teams.
Another benefit playing in college, you get to travel to a lot of different cities and play, and especially the volleyball team. Absolutely, they've been to a lot of places this year. Any sites, places that you've enjoyed going to so far?
We went to Yellowstone actually, and it was really fun. I've never really like gone on vacation anywhere and just like explored somewhere before. I've always like gone places for volleyball tournaments. So like being able to actually explore something and just experience it for what it is was really cool.
Yeah, Yellowstone, a beautiful place. Are you adjusting well to the climate here in Murfreesboro? I know it's significantly different than what you have up north.
Yeah, I love it. I hate the snow and the cold. So just like being here where it's like warmer, like it's not necessarily like warm in the winter or anything, but it's like less snow, less of that. It's way nicer.
Well, if you don't like snow, you're in the perfect place. Although, we've been known to have some mild winters here and there, so you're in the great place for that. And of course, we're happy you're here, having a great freshman year for MTSU Lady Raiders volleyball. That's Andi Spies, freshman setter. Andi, again, I appreciate you coming on, and I wish you and the Lady Raiders the best of luck the rest of the way.
Thank you so much.
The BRP is proudly partnered with Rivals Network affiliate GoMiddle.com. Subscribe for premium content for all the inside scoop on MTSU athletics, recruiting, or join our free forums to discuss today's episode and all things Blue Raiders. The BRP is also partnered with the College Huddle, a nationwide collaborative effort with over 80 Division I programs represented. Check out the website at thecollegehuddle.com to catch up on all college football content with daily articles and episodes provided by the largest college podcast community on the internet. As always, here on the Blue Raider podcast, we'd like to wrap up our episode with a preview for the upcoming matchup and go behind enemy lines. Joining us today is friend of the Conference USA Roundtable. He is host of MinerTalk at 600 El Paso ESPN. It is Adrian Broaddus. Adrian, how's it going, man?
Jake, how does it feel to be in the bottom of Conference USA? Because the feeling, I think it's probably mutual. It's been a tough. You know what? UTEP fans haven't really turned the page from September to October to watch relevant football in a long time, and so, or I guess it's been 2 years, but it feels like a long time.
Yeah, we share that same similarity as far as the bottom feeders go. And what's so funny about our unique situation, especially here in Murfreesboro, is Scotty Walden was someone that was on our radar to be our head coach. And so now you're kind of seeing that come to fruition in El Paso. But I don't necessarily blame either team's situation on a first-year basis. You know, there's a lot that happens in that first year. Scotty Walden has to fill a roster much like Derek Mason did, and we're obviously going through those growing pains. And I think our situations are a lot worse than maybe a lot of us, the fan bases anyways, thought that they would be. But for you guys in particular, it's been a rough go the last couple of weeks. You did get your first win in the Walden era, and then last week you got a really bad injury. You cough one up there against Louisiana Tech. What is the energy around in El Paso right now?
Oh, it's disgust. I mean, the fan. No, I'm just kidding. I think it's kind of strange. It's a mix, Jake. It's glass half full for some fans, glass half empty for other fans. The glass half full fans will bank on some of the freshmen that have been able to play, you know, some of the newcomers that we've been able to see, some of the growth that has happened with the team. When they won that game, they liked the energy, they liked the celebration, they liked all that kind of stuff, and took positives away. The pessimists on the UTEP fan base, they'll go off and say stuff like, well, you know, if you had won and had beaten a team like Southern Utah, then we would have more respect for this group right here. But this is still a group that lost to an FCS opponent at home. This is still a group that struggles offensively. Less than 20 points a game is what they're averaging on offense, which is, you know, not very good whatsoever. I get it. You know, there was a really bad hit that happened against their starting quarterback this past week in La Tech. But Skylar, you know, I don't know if Skylar Locklear ends up playing in this game or whatever his status might be, but still, I mean, the offense has looked bad all season long, really. I mean, they played one half of maybe a little exciting football against Colorado State on offense. But outside of that, I just really haven't seen much offensively. And then on the defensive side, they've had some improvements, and I think those pessimists will appreciate that. But at the same time, you know, the pessimists will say stuff like, well, this wasn't – they thought it was going to be maybe a disappointing season, but it wasn't what they saw right here and what we're seeing right here.
Before we get into talking about the Jimmy and Joes there, what's the beat on Scotty Walden? You know, what is, I know you might have already answered it a little bit there, but what do we blame year one on Scotty Walden? Is this entirely his fault? What are people in El Paso thinking about that?
No, of course not. I mean, I think that fans are still optimistic. I think fans understand how historically bad of a program UTEP has. I mean, you talk about this program right here, right? Hasn't won a bowl game since 1967. Hasn't been to a bowl game or, you know, even been competitive in a bowl game really in a while. I get it. They went to the New Mexico Bowl 2 seasons ago, but that feels more like an anomaly for that Dana Dimel season than that really felt like a real building point or like a building step. And we all saw how that ended. So, you know, I feel like for the fans right now in Scotty Walden, they're cautiously optimistic. They were through the roof optimistic in the off season and especially the summer. I think the fan base drank all the Kool-Aid. They hopped on board. And this fan base, I mean, Jake, is starving for a winner. They really are. They're starving for a football program that's going to deliver, that's going to bring them to a bowl game, that's going to bring some excitement. The fans are already there. I mean, you saw them. They packed 46,000 in for an FCS team who came in for Southern Utah. But, you know, some of the shortcomings, I think that's what's really hurt some of that momentum that Scotty Walden had over the offseason. I get it. This is year one. And I think he has a lot of, he takes a lot of accountability in these losses, which is something I think fans appreciate. And, no one's going to write him off after just 7 games. Of course not. I feel like, you got to look to year 2 and 3, just knowing how historically bad this program really is.
Well, let's get into the situation there. At quarterback, especially rotated through. Skylar Locklear was your week 1 starter. You rolled in McConnell there a little bit. Then McConnell got a few starts, and then he gets hurt in Western Kentucky. You go back to Locklear, and then he has a brutal hit there to open up that third quarter against Louisiana Tech. And you like to think maybe if he was in the game, you might have a different outcome. But now, maybe you can get me some clarity. But from my perspective, it looks like they're both going to be out this coming Saturday. We don't know the status necessarily of Locklear in regards to concussion protocol, but I would say it's safe. But in the event that he doesn't play Saturday, what are we looking at quarterback?
Yeah, I would say that there's a lot to take away right there. First off, Caden McConnell is out for the rest of the year. It is a wrist injury. He is headed to surgery and will be out on a, maybe a couple month timeline right there before he can start throwing. But on the flip side with Skylar Locklear, have no clue on him. And I think the coaching staff, they're going to look to see on everything they can do to get him playing, active, ready to go. That's going to be the biggest thing. Then it's the evaluation of the 2 true freshman quarterbacks. On one side, it's J.P. Pickles. On the other side, it's Shea Smith. Fans here in El Paso really lean to Shea Smith because he played for a local team in Franklin High School here in El Paso. So there's a local twist to it right there. Not to mention his dad is Paul Smith, who, oh, by the way, is like an all-time great in UTEP football history and was a fullback who played in the NFL for almost 7 seasons in the mid 90s to early 2000s. So there's a lot of, pedigree right there, I would say, with somebody like a Shea Smith for fans hoping for. The problem is, Jake, I don't know if the coaching staff understands what they want to do with the redshirt side of things, right? True freshmen, we both get it. They can only play 4 games. If they play more than 4 games, they burn that first year of eligibility. If they don't, they could stay for that and they can elect to redshirt. J.P. Pickles has 3 games left. Shea Smith has 1 game left on his eligibility. You do the math, man. If they only have 4 games left, maybe they stagger this out and just let both true freshmen compete at that quarterback position. The thing that I guess frustrates me a little bit is they burned one of those Shea Smith games on kickoff. Like he was playing on kickoff coverage. So that's just, that was just one of those things. I think they just wanted to get him some in-game experience. They didn't foresee any kind of injuries happen in their quarterback room. Nonetheless, it's J.P. Pickles or Shea Smith for right now. And I don't think we're going to know until kickoff, my friend. As far as the backups to either of those guys, Kevin Hurley, wide receiver for the Miners, played a lot of quarterback for UTEP and has played quarterback as his true position. He made the switch to wide receiver. I just want to float that out there. I also want to float out the fact that Xavier Smith, who plays safety, and Trey Goodman, who plays wide receiver, both played quarterback in high school. So just floating that out there, man. I don't know if you want to necessarily trust the keys to the car or hand the keys to the car to maybe like a walk-on true freshman. So I don't really want to get into that, but I just want to float that out there. There's other players on this team who have quarterback and throwing experience.
Yeah, MTSU's seen the switch the other way. We had a quarterback go to free safety in Xavier Williams. So a lot of those guys are athletes, and we've seen in years past, especially at this level of the G5, that sometimes even going to the Wildcat offense isn't necessarily that far of a stretch. Now, I don't know what Scotty Walden's necessarily comfortable with, but that's definitely an interesting storyline that I know here in Murfreesboro we're keeping a close eye on, because that definitely changes the dynamic of this matchup, and if anything, gives us a little bit of a benefit. But also benefit to the Miners for the ability to surprise MTSU for what they have. But I want to roll over to some of the athletes you do have on offense. Some of the big names there that come out to me is Javon Jackson. We know what he was at Austin Peay, nearly a 1,400-yard rusher, 10 touchdowns last year for the Governors. Now in El Paso, not seeing the same success. I'm sure you could equate that to the fact that he's playing FBS football now. And he's also had a relatively rough schedule to this point. I know the schedule eases up a little bit for UTEP down the stretch. But other names, Kenny Odom, second in Conference USA and fifth in all of college football with over 21 yards per reception. And then Cam Thomas, who's a purely volume catcher. I mean, he's got great hands. He's always open. Second in CUSA and 43 receptions. So when you look at these 3 weapons that is going to be to the benefit of whatever quarterback you have, what kind of effect do these guys have in the outcome on Saturday?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like the skill position players are pretty interesting. I feel like Javon Jackson is somebody who has emerged over the past 2 weeks. It's because he was dealing with an injury. It's because, he wasn't 100% healthy in those first couple games. And I think that's why. And you're right. Like, it's the FCS to FBS adjustment to try to see what he could do right there. Kenny Odom, you just want to get him the ball in space, give him the ball, let him make the play himself. He can. But you know what, Jake? All of this is out the window if they can't score. Like all of this is like I could talk all day about how the upside of guys like Trey Goodman. I can tell you guys like the young guys like Isaiah Jolly or even Cam Thomas, who does a little bit of everything, running the ball, being in the receiving game, all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't matter unless they score points, and the Miners haven't done that all season long.
Defensively now, not the bottom feeders of the conference, but by all means, they're not. That doesn't say much given where this conference is defensively. But the Miners are giving up over 30 points per game. That's an area I'm sure you need to see improvement defensively. Outside of Westmoreland, who we all thought would be good, Corey Chapman's had a good year. Any other names that you'd like to see kind of come up big this Saturday?
Well, I also really like Dorian Hopkins, who's been their linebacker. I feel like has been one of their defensive MVPs all season long. Just really impressed with who he has been. He will take interceptions like he did for that 82-yard interception return when they played against Florida International in that victory that you talked about. But he could also do things like sack the quarterback, force fumbles, get on top of a fumble and stuff like that. I just have been really impressed by Dorian Hopkins. You mentioned both Maurice Westmoreland and Corey Chapman. I like both those guys a lot. Westmoreland, he's really emerged over the past 2 weeks as well. He was kind of, everybody's wondering, well, where is he? And the past 3 weeks, he's really shown where he has been. He's taken a bit of time to getting adjusted to this new 3-3-5 defense. But now I feel like defensive coordinator J.J. Clark has been able to plug him in, do some good things with him. So been really impressed with those guys. I want to see what happens with the D-line. I like the young true freshmen they mix in, like Kyron Duhan, Jalen Jones. Those guys have been really nice emerging on that D-line, but how do they hold up against this Middle Tennessee team will be pretty interesting to me.
The pass rush is the best in Conference USA with 21 sacks on the season for the Miners D-line. So it'll be interesting to see, again, the shakeup that is the MTSU line that we have on a week-to-week basis, if they're able to just be quick with the ball, not allow those opportunities for those sacks. But, Adrian, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. One last question before we sign off. What's got to happen for the Miners to win this Saturday?
Hey, big shout-out to you, Jake. I really appreciate you inviting me on the show. For the Miners to win, they got to score points. Kind of what my theme has been this entire time. Offense has felt anemic throughout the season. At home, you're at home at the Sun Bowl. Score some points. Win the game. Do what you did against Florida International and score 30+. I mean, they scored 30 against the Panthers, but try to go beyond that this time around, despite whoever's at quarterback. Just score some points offensively. The defense has proven that they can hang in any game. So, that offense has to show up.
That is Adrian Broaddus, host of MinerTalk at 600 ESPN El Paso. Adrian, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.
Thanks, Jake. Great job, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks for sticking around to the Raider wrap-up portion of the episode where we will review the last week's results as well as a look ahead to this week's schedule and all things Blue Raiders athletics. So let's go ahead and kick things off with the women's golf, who finished up last Tuesday at the Mercedes-Benz Intercollegiate up in Knoxville, Tennessee. The team finished tied for 7th out of 13. Congratulations to Kendall Maynard, who got Conference USA Golfer of the Week, Ladies Golfer of the Week, finishing tied for 14th at 4 strokes over. Lainey Campbell came in tied for 26th at 9 over. Nicole Johnson tied for 34th at 11 over. Ella Manley tied for 44th at 15 over. Jillian Bowman, who competed as an individual, was tied for 52nd at 18 over. And then rounding out the team card was Abby Lee, tied for 58th at 20 strokes over par. It's been a minute since football played, but they competed last Wednesday night at Jacksonville State. Came out to a hot start, but had a very slow finish, losing to the Gamecocks 42-20. Very tough to stop that rushing attack from Tyler Huff and the Gamecocks, as well as Trey Stewart, giving up over 438 yards on the ground to Jacksonville State, who has had quite the reform this year, as we previewed last week with Caleb Williams, with Tyler Huff at quarterback, as well as that dynamic zone read an RPO offense that Rich Rodriguez runs there. So Jacksonville State's hot we ran into a freight train, and unfortunately the Raiders come out on the losing end of that, but the schedule does start to turn around in their favor beginning this Saturday, where they will face off in El Paso against the UTEP Miners. That kickoff is at 2:30 local time Central. So all eyes there as we hope to get back onto the winning train and hopefully see if we can't get to 5, maybe even that 6th bowl win. Volleyball swept this week a home series with Louisiana Tech to improve to 7-5 in conference play. Andi Spies continues her impressive season, as we already talked about in today's episode, but she picked up a Setter of the Week honor. She's the second freshman in Conference USA this season to do so. She had 95 assists in those 8 sets this week against Louisiana Tech, and then 23 digs to go along with it. Again, an exceptional season for her. I believe she's now up to 3rd in conference in aces, as along with being tops in the conference in assists, and all this to be said as a freshman. So again, congratulations to Andi and the Lady Raiders as they continue to get closer and closer to clinching a spot in the playoffs for the Conference USA tournament. This week, they will be in El Paso to face the Miners, who were undefeated prior to losing to Western Kentucky this last week. So it's going to be a tough matchup this week. Hopefully they can compete on the road there in El Paso and pick up another win. Lady Raiders basketball wrapped up their first exhibition on Friday, defeating UT Southern, formerly Martin Methodist, by a score of 104-66. Player of the game could go to a lot of people, but I had to give it to Tamia Scott because of her, obviously, team leading 24 points. But I think more impressively was the 5 blocks, regardless of who you play. The closing speed was there for her on Friday night with the 5 blocks, but a lot of players could definitely earn that honor, but I give it to Tamia Scott. But this week, they will continue another exhibition with Lindsey Wilson on Wednesday. That tips off at 6:30 p.m. in the Murphy Center, and then they actually start their season on the road in Northern Kentucky to face the Lady Norse on Monday, the official kickoff of the Division I season, and that tips off at 5 p.m. local time. Lady Raiders soccer dropped another heartbreaker on Sunday at Liberty in Lynchburg, Virginia by a score of 1-2. Gave up a late goal to the Flames in the 80th minute, so just 10 minutes short of regulation finalizing. Another tough loss for the ladies. They're just on the brink of really breaking through, but as I've said in the past, I think they have a spot locked up with only one regular season game remaining. I think at this point it's all a formality. It's just a matter of where they fall into the seeding. So they got a home matchup. It is senior day this Friday at 7 p.m. against the Lady Texters. And then on Monday actually begins the Conference USA Championships down in Miami, Florida. So again, quick turnaround for that, but all eyes on them in regards to where they're seeding and who they play in that first round matchup. Manon Labarge continues to add to her impressive season. Already Conference USA second in goals scored with a goal on Liberty, so she earns our Player of the Week honors. Men's golf is still currently in action in Houston as they are at the Houston Christian University's Husky Intercollegiate. The team, as of this recording, is 7th of 12 teams there, is sitting at 14 strokes over par. JJ Zimmer currently leads the field with a 5 strokes under. Competing as an individual, Oliver Baker tied for 18th at 2 over. Thad Whitfield and Sheldon McKnight both are tied in 31st at 6 over. Charlie Bell tied for 48th at 10 over, and Carter Maneth tied for 51st at 11 over. And that will be the final competition for them this fall before they go into their spring schedule. Men's tennis will be back in action before they get into their Masters as well as their their individual national championship later this fall. So they will be competing up in Nashville, the Lipscomb Invitational that begins this Friday at 1 o'clock. So keep tabs on that over social media, as well as we'll have all the coverage for you next week. Track and field finally competes for their right to defend their conference championship in both men's and women this Saturday down in Oxford, Alabama. That track meet is on Saturday morning, so we'll keep eyes peeled there again on social media for them to defend their title. And of course, we'll have all your coverage for you here on the BRP in next week's episode. And then men's basketball will have their first game by the time we record again. That is on Monday night at Murphy Center, and they will be hosting Oglethorpe as I guess technically it would be considered an exhibition, but because it's within the ramifications of the official start of Division I basketball season, it does count towards record. So they'll be facing against, I believe, a Division III Oglethorpe. I could be wrong about that, but look forward to seeing the team in action for the first time this Monday night at home, and that game does tip off at 6:30 p.m. And that will do it for the Raider wrap-up portion of the episode. Again, I appreciate everyone tuning into today's episode. Look ahead to next week's episode. We will have the one, the only Jake Rose from ESPN coming on to talk a little bit about basketball, a little bit about football, give us his revisit from a long time ago as he was on the show in its infant stages. So I appreciate him coming back. So stay tuned for him. We've also got football cornerback, local Murfreesboro product, Diari McDonald joining the show. And then, of course, we will go behind enemy lines with our matchup for Liberty with Ben Reynolds of the Fan the Flame podcast. So excited to have those three guys join the podcast next week. And again, thanks again to the viewers for tuning in today. If you aren't already, make sure you're following us on all of our social media accounts, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Of course, if you're not listening to us on YouTube, check us out on YouTube, shoot us a subscribe, like our videos. It all helps with the algorithm, and I greatly appreciate any support that you guys are willing to offer us. I can also say without checking out our merchandise over at BlueRaiderPodcast.com. There's a link there that'll take you all the merchandise if you want to support the show. But most importantly, I've got a collaboration coming up with a certain baseball athlete. So I want you guys to be tuned in for that when we make that announcement in the coming weeks. But until next week, I appreciate everyone sticking around. And until then, go Blue.